Ladies and gentlemen, Sofi Oksanen.
I'm having author tour in US, and unfortunately volcanic eruption made my flight a bit difficult, but now at last I'm here and I'm very happy to be here.
This is a story about two women, Alida and Sara. Alida is the main character, and she's living alone in the Estonian countryside. 1992 is the year, and she's living alone and finds a molested girl from her backyard. The story itself is related to Estonian recent past, because I'm half Estonian myself, and Estonia has a very harsh history, double occupied country, and the story in Purge dates back to 30s when Estonia was independent, and then we go through two occupations, two Soviet occupation and one German occupation, and then in 1991 Estonia regained its independence, and the story, the meeting of those two ladies happens 1992, because that was a year when Estonia had just regained the independence, and it was a very strange time, because Soviet Union had just collapsed. The whole society was in change, and there was a lot of uncertainty about everything. And also the collapse of Soviet Union meant great possibilities for human trafficking, and that's why the story tells about sex trade and its effects as well.
I want to explain Estonian recent past to people who are outside Estonia, so I'm not actually writing for Estonians. They know their own history. So as a child I heard so much stories, so I have learned actually Estonian history and Soviet history through listening. So it has been oral history actually, and I think it's now time to get the oral history into books, into writing, because oral history is always oral history, and it's reachable only to those who speak the same language. But when you think about literature and art itself, the audience is much broader, and one thing is that I think Europe is still divided, even though Berlin Wall has been torn down, because Western Europe does not understand the history of Eastern Europe, and Western Europe is still actually reading the history that was written during the Soviet power, which in a way means that now it's time to rewrite the European history, and rewrite it in a way that also Eastern European countries can identify themselves from that European history. I'm talking about Soviet occupation, but there are still quite many Finnish people who are still they are not very certain if they can use the word occupation when talking about Soviet occupation, and that's quite surprising actually, because when I meet people outside Finland and from Europe and from United States, then it's quite obvious for everybody that it was occupation. But there are still some Finnish people who still they are not certain, and they don't actually understand what it means when a country is occupied. What does it do to a country? What does it do to the nation and national identity, and also question about languages, because Soviet times meant that the country was under severe Russification, and which wasn't very good for Estonian language, for example, and that's something that Finnish people don't always really get. And of course that's because the traveling restrictions were quite hard, so actually there are not too many people who have seen the real Soviet life, actually. So when I think about myself as an author, I was lucky to be probably the only child coming from Western countries and having the possibility to really see the real Soviet life. Because my grandparents were living on the countryside, and I saw the real life in a collective farm. We edited together with IMBY an article collection called Fear Behind Us All, and it's about how Estonia lost its history and how to get it back. And to our surprise, Russia reacted to the collection, and for example, the big party United Russia made also a press release saying that our article collection was anti-Russian, which was absurd because the book was in Finnish and it was just coming out, so there was no possibility for that they had read the book in Finnish, of course. So it's absurd. But anyway, it was surprising that they obviously wanted, or the official Russian wanted to make a statement and also to influence they wanted to influence the freedom of speech in Finland that is outside their own territory. And that was surprising, but on the other hand, that goes in line with the history politics at the moment. And that is something that I find problematic, because that means that they want to influence on what people are writing in other countries about Estonian history, and that itself is quite absurd situation.